Committee members, if I could ask us to come back together, please. Thank you. Thank you all very much. So we have the K-12 bill here with us right now, correct? It was referred to the committee. So as we had stated earlier, we reviewed the draft. It went to the Senate. The Senate has processed it. It has come back to the Assembly. It has been referred to us. There does not need to, we'll go ahead and open up the hearing on it because we do need to open up a hearing. We'll have a bit of conversation about it and then we're going to move it. When we get done with K-12, we're going to do appropriations. We'll get a walkthrough on appropriations. We'll move to introduce it. We'll refer to the floor. When we get back to the floor, we will be able to vote on K-12, refer appropriations back to the committee, and we can come back up here and deal with the appropriations bill, go back to the floor, vote the appropriations bill, put it on the desk, start the 24-hour clock. I hope you wore your walking shoes. This is just how we've got to get it done so we can have everything by the end of tonight. So with that, Ms. Kaufman?
Madam Chair, so if we are going to hear Senate Bill 458, I would ask that our K-12 team just provide a brief summary of it.
Thank you very much. So I will open up the hearing on Assembly Bill 458. Our magnificent K-12 team is there. We've already been through the bill, but if you would give us a very high-level overview, we'll open it up for any last-minute questions and we'll proceed from there. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Adam Dross with LCB Fiscal. I'm joined tonight by my colleagues, Julie Waller and J-Mary Mangoba. We're here to, as you mentioned, we presented the K-12 SB 458 earlier this week. This bill provides funding for K-12 education for the 2021-23 biennium. It includes funding for the new pupil-centered funding plan, as well as some statutory changes to stand up the model and implement it in the 2021-23 biennium. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have about the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So committee members, this is the one that we walked through earlier. With that, are there any questions? Dr. Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize I don't have the bill right in front of me, but I know that there's a section where it talks about not funding leadership events in the bill, and there was some concern about not being able to fund the Future Farmers America and other school programs that folks have reached out to me, and unfortunately I don't have that bill in front of me. Are you familiar with that concern? I believe it's section 18 or later on if anybody happens to have a copy of the bill with them.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Waller for the record. Through you to Assemblywoman Dr. Titus. Yes, that is a provision that has been in the K-12 bill for a number of sessions. And what that relates to is, I believe back in the 2015 session, a change was made to statute to basically allow a percentage amount of the general fund appropriation to be directed to the leadership training programs, and that's a 5% 5% of the total general fund appropriation. And since that passed after the K-12 bill was done, there was no discussion of that change, and so the subsequent legislature or money committees had, because there was funding in the K-12, in the other state education programs grant, that language was added to the K-12 bill so that there wasn't just a flat percentage allocation based on the total general fund appropriation to the career and technical education program, which, as you know, is fund school district programs for career and technical education and serves as a maintenance of effort for the federal Perkins 5 career and technical education grant. There are federal dollars also authorized use of some of the federal dollars Perkins grant funding for to fund these leadership programs as well. And I would point out that while the money committee's last session approved the ongoing, or it was a standard categorical grant to these nonprofit organizations for these supporting the career and technical education programs. Those dollars were rolled into the AB 309 grant that was provided to the school districts, and I don't believe that those entities received any funding in the current biennium from the state dollars for that purpose. So I believe that the Department of Education has been providing federal dollars in lieu of those state dollars.
So, and thank you for that clarification. So are we to assume, so I can assure my constituents in these schools that have those kind of programs, that there's possibly still going to be federal funds, or is this a whole different topic? They were just at a loss on that particular, how were they going to fund those?
Yes, Madam Chair, through you to Dr. Titus. So again, I'm not familiar with how those organizations were funding their programs this current biennium, because those state dollars have not been provided this biennium. There's no change there. Those dollars were provided to the AB 309 block grant, and I'm not sure if the schools actually provided dollars from that block grant to those programs. But I am aware that the Department of Education, through the work programs I've seen come through, have provided dollars for those leadership programs from the federal, the department's allocation of the federal Perkins grant funding. So it would be my assumption that those dollars, the federal Perkins grant has been reauthorized. Those dollars are will continue through the upcoming biennium, and so without confirmation from the Department of Education, I'm not aware of any change from that process currently.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
You're welcome, Dr. Titus. Any other questions from any other committee members at this time? Not seeing any. So with that, committee members, I believe we can go ahead and process this K-12 bill, which will allow us to start rolling through to the last day of session. So without any other questions or comments, I would take a do pass on a Senate Bill 458. I have a motion from Vice Chair Monroe Moreno, second from Ms. Benitez Thompson. Comments on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing none, passes unanimously of the members present. Okay, we're almost there. With that, we have the appropriations bill to review.
Madam Chair, that is correct. We have the Appropriations Act, which will be introduced in Ways and Means, and we have Ms. Crockett, Ms. Ryan, and Ms. Morris here to present.
Thank you, Mr. Leiser. With that, everyone has a document. Ms. Crockett, good evening. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy Crockett with the Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. I have Madison Ryan and Nancy Morris, who were instrumental in the preparation of this bill with me, and Kimbra Ellsworth was also instrumental, but she was not able to join us this evening. The Appropriations Act bill draft request, which implements decisions made by the money committees for state general fund and state highway fund appropriations, as well as back language to implement money committee decisions for appropriations. Total general fund appropriations for agency budgets are in sections 1 through 32, and that's in pages 1 through 17 of the bill. Total $5.999 billion over the biennium, which is an increase of 5.1% when compared to the amount approved by the 2019 legislature of $5.734 billion. Section 33 of the bill on page 17 through 18 includes highway fund appropriations, which total $305 million, which is a 15.6% increase from the previous biennium amount. As the committee has heard, some budgets with appropriations are excluded from the Appropriations Act. That includes funding in 6 education budgets included in the Education Funding Bill, appropriations for the Gaming Control Board, the Gaming Commission, and the Department of Transportation are included in the Authorizations Act, and funding appropriated to the Board of Examiners for General Fund and Highway Fund salary adjustments are included in the pay bill. Staff would also note there are some general fund appropriations in the back language, including $9.7 million in fiscal year 2021, $8.9 million in fiscal year 2022, and $8.2 million in fiscal year 2023. Altogether, the Appropriations Act includes $6.026 billion in general fund appropriations over the biennium. Moving on to the back language, beginning on page 18, section 34 is carryover language that subjects appropriations in this bill to the State Budget Act, which provides Interim Finance Committee jurisdiction over work program revisions, with the exception of the legislature, the Judicial Department, and the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, as they are exempt from the State Budget Act pursuant to NRS 353. Moving on to page 19, section 35 is carryover language that provides authority for amounts appropriated to certain budgets to be transferred between fiscal years. Staff would note the System Technology Application Design budget of the Department of Motor Vehicles was added per the Money Committee's action this session. On page 20, section 36 is carryover language that provides for amounts appropriated for deferred maintenance and extraordinary maintenance may be transferred within the same budget from one year to the other. Sections 37 through 39 provide authority to transfer appropriations for specific purposes between fiscal years. In section 37, this is carryover language relating to the transfer of funding for broadband in the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology budget. On page 21, section 38 provides authority to transfer within the Governor's Finance Office special appropriation for Civil Air Patrol activities. Section 39 is new language that was approved to transfer money for graduate medical education programs in the Governor's Finance Office Special Appropriations budget. Section 40 is new language that authorizes the transfer of funding within the Secretary of State's office for their commercial recording system replacement. On page 22, section 41 provides authority, which is new language for transfer of the Supreme Court's information system projects. Page 23, section 42 provides authority to transfer funding for auditing of hospitals and other licensed facilities within the Department of Education Data System Management budget. Section 43 is new language that provides authority to transfer funding for administration and monitoring of programs within the Department of Education Educator Effectiveness budget. On page 24, section 44 is new language that provides authority to transfer within the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services budget for community-based living arrangement services. Section 45 is carryover language that provides authority to transfer for the Nevada National Guard Youth Challenge Program within the Office of the Military. Section 46 is carryover language that allows for transfer within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for the Conservation Credit System. Section 47 is new language that provides authority to transfer within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for activities to support Nevada's climate initiative. Section 48 is new language that allows for the transfer of funding within the Division of Parole and Probation for their information system replacement project. On page 26, there is carryover language relating to the transfer of funding for credit card transaction fees within the Department of Motor Vehicles. The next sections 50 through 55 relate to certain appropriations that do not revert to the general fund. Section 50 is carryover language that relates to the carry forward of funding appropriated by the 2015 legislature for Sagebrush Ecosystem budget. Section 51 is carryover language that provides that the Governor's Office of Economic Development Catalyst account carry forward from the current biennium and revert at the end of fiscal year 2023, consistent with the Money Committee's decision to eliminate this budget. On page 27, Section 52 is carryover language relating to the carry forward of the knowledge account and the Nevada Main Street program accounts within the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Page 50, or Section 53 relates to the Workforce Innovations for a New Nevada account and aligns with current law to direct that funding would carry forward from fiscal year 2022 and revert in the end of 2023. And this section is effective if and only if Senate Bill 24 does not pass, as that would change the reversionary provisions of the account. And Section 54 would direct that the Workforce Innovations for a New Nevada account carry forward without reversion, and this would be effective if and only if Senate Bill 24 is passed. On page 28, Section 55 relates to the Nevada system of higher education, education for dependent children, and that budget does not also revert. Sections 56 through 61 allow for transfer of appropriations between budgets. Section 56 is carry forward language that allow for the transfer of salary and payroll costs between budgets within the same department. Section 57 is carryover language that allows for appropriations to transfer within the legislative fund. On page 29, Section 58 is carryover language that allows for funding to be transferred within the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services. Section 59 is carryover language that allows for the transfer of appropriations between Nevada Medicaid and Nevada Checkup budgets. Section 60 is carryover language that allows for the transfer of appropriations between the juvenile correctional facility budgets within the Division of Child and Family Services. Section 61 also relates to the Division of Child and Family Services, and it allows for the transfer of appropriations between the Northern and Southern Child Adolescent Services budgets. On page 30, sections 62 through 64 provide direction to the executive branch in implementing decisions of the money committees. Section 62 is new language that expresses the intent of the legislature that funding appropriated to the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy would be used to continue its current model of prescription drug delivery services, in which prescription drug benefits are not carved out of managed care. Section 63 is a new section that directs appropriations made to the Public Employees Benefits Program be spent for the purposes of funding a 1-month state participant premium holiday. Section 64 is new language requiring the identification and reversion of general fund savings associated with potential duplicated services following the implementation of a specialized foster care Medicaid state plan option within the Division of Child and Family Services. Section 65 is carryover language that authorizes the transfer of general funds within the Department of Health and Human Services to implement the private hospital collaborative Medicaid upper payment limit supplemental payment program. Section 66 through 68 on page 32 allow for additional transfers between budgets. Section 66 authorizes transfers between the regional centers of the Aging and Disability Services Division for certain services. Section 67 is carryover language, which allows for transfers within the Department of Corrections with certain exceptions noted in the bill. Section 68 on page 33 allows for transfers among the Nevada system of higher education budgets. Section 69 and 70 establish appropriation limits for certain services. Section 68 limits appropriations for the Division of Child and Family Services for block grants and respite. Section 70 limits appropriations to certain Division of Welfare and Supportive Services and Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy Services budgets. On page 34, sections 71 through 73 relate to the Nevada system of higher education. Section 71 is carry forward language that requires the Nevada system of higher education to set aside amounts if requested to do so by the governor. Section 72 is carryover language that provides for appropriations to be carried forward if used for documented research grant match. Section 73 is also carryover language which provides for appropriations to transfer for the purpose of implementing the performance funding pool. On page 36, there are 3 sections that authorize general fund advances to state agencies in certain circumstances, and these are all carryover sections. Section 74 authorizes a general fund advance to the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for forest fire billing costs. Section 75 allows for an advance to the Office of the Military for emergency activation. Section 76 authorizes a general fund advance to the Department of Veteran Services. On page, beginning on page 39, sections 77 through 86 provide for new appropriations. Section 77 provides $6.7 million in fiscal year 2022 and $6.9 million in fiscal year 2023 of highway fund to the Department of Motor Vehicles to support the department's plan to redesign its computer system. And this section would be effective only if neither Assembly Bill 488 or 491 of this session passed to authorize the agency to assess a technology fee. Section 78 appropriates funding to the Interim Finance Committee for allocation to the Department of Corrections for the Ely Conservation Camp. Section 79 appropriates funding to the Interim Finance Committee for allocation to the Ely State Prison. Section 80 appropriates funding to the Interim Finance Committee for allocation to the Department of Indigent Defense. And beginning on page 41, Section 81 and 82 appropriate funding to the Interim Finance Committee for allocation to the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. Section 83 on page 43 allocates funding to the Interim Finance Committee for allocation to the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation for vocational rehabilitation services. On page 44, there's an appropriation to PERS for legislative retirement system costs. Section 85 appropriates $9.7 million for the costs of the 81st legislative session. Section 86 requires a transfer of $97.5 million from the rainy day fund to the general fund for unrestricted general fund use. Sections 87 through 92 provide for the transfer of funding between the Healthcare Financing and Policy Medicaid account and administration account for implementing certain provisions of legislation this session. Moving on to page 47, section 93 relates to requiring the reversion of unspent funding at the end of each fiscal year. On page 48, section 94 indicates the last day transactions can be processed for a fiscal year. Section 95 directs the controller to establish funding as established in this bill. Section 96 directs the controller to pay salaries for certain elected officials in biweekly installments. On page 49, section 97 is carryover language that addresses certain situations if the general fund were to drop below $120 million during the interim. Section 98 on page 50 is carryover language that allows for the use of funding in the circumstance when the state would need to make payments under the Federal Cash Management Improvement Act. Section 99 relates to name changes made in other bills and how that would affect names in this bill. Section 100 is new language that amends language in Assembly Bill 3 of the 31st special session relating to approved budget reductions for the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy that were restored. On page 54, there are two sections, section 101 and 102, that extend appropriations made by the 2019 legislature till the end of fiscal year 2022, and those would be for parole and probation for information system replacement, and Division of Forestry for vehicle replacement. And on page 56, section 103 lays out the effective dates of the various sections in the bill. And we would be happy to answer any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crockett. It's amazing, committee members, when you walk through this, how many things you start to remember that we had conversations about. It's a lot of work and, what did we say? There we go. 57 pages, wow. So with that, committee members, are there any questions? I have Dr. Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, thank you, staff. Again, as the chair said, it's amazing what we have just heard and what we have put staff through, and I appreciate all the time you've put into it. My questions are on specific page 28, numbers, section 56. And this authorizes the appropriation of any division, agency, or section or department for the support of salaries, and they can be transferred to other divisions within, just for clarification, it must be within the same department, I would assume, to support salaries and payroll costs, as long as the IFC approves that. So it's within the same department. We can't use them between departments, correct?
Yes, that is correct. That reflects the bill as written.
Then further, than at the end of that, it says the amount transferred in budget is limited to the amount budgeted for vacancy savings. So that, does that mean that if positions are funded, and we've authorized certain positions, and even if they're not filled, if they're suddenly filled, then this money could be used to pay those folks? Is that how that works?
What vacancy savings is a budgetary mechanism that is used to reflect natural turnover in positions. So a certain percentage of salary costs are reduced out of standard budgets based on the size of the agency to account for natural turnover that would be expected. So if, say, $500,000 or something like that was budgeted in a budget, they would be able to transfer up to that amount.
Thank you for that clarification, and then follow up on that, Madam Chair. We have multiple times discussed leaving a position vacant pending on perhaps projected income or perhaps some of this money that we may be getting that the federal government has authorized us to use for certain situations that fall under their categories. Would this be a part of those decisions that we've made to leave vacant positions vacant and not eliminate them so that we may fund them in the future?
No, I don't necessarily view that as being related. This is just a mechanism to potentially use funding savings in one budget for another budget in a department if they happen to not experience.
So just to be clear, that this is standard procedures in these
Yes.
appropriations, how, just to the record, I just want to make sure that this is how we always do this for future as we need to with these positions.
Yes, this language is included in Appropriations Act for many, many years.
Right, I
and
just
it's
wanted to put that
always-
on the record, that it had nothing to do with anything in the future. This is how we fund these positions and enable these departments to have some flexibility pending some oversight.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Other committee members at this time? Another question, Assemblywoman Tolles.
Thank you, Chair. First, I thank you again for all of this work. It's pretty phenomenal. I want to acknowledge that earlier today I asked about the Nevada Main Street program and the Workforce Innovations program, and on page 27 I do see that carryover reflected in here. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear for the record, and thank again staff for answering my questions this morning and seeing that in this document. On page 53, I see the Nevada Central Cancer Registry shows a 0 for the second year, and I'm assuming that's because we have a new fee structure, but I just wanted to clarify why that is a 0 and if that's reflective of the other work that we've done in this committee to provide a new way to help pay for that. Thank you.
Staff would note the appropriation amounts on page 53 are actually related to amending Assembly Bill 3 of the 31st special session, so that does not reflect the budget for the next biennium. That is amending certain provisions related to Medicaid budget reductions. On page 54, you can see the red-lined items there. The section in the bill is there to reflect that those items have been restored to the Medicaid budget, so that 0 relates to the Nevada Central Cancer Registry fiscal year 2021 budget.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I didn't catch, you're right, at the top of section 100, it does refer back to that, so I appreciate that clarification. Thanks.
And if I may, Ms. Crockett, to expand upon that, so that red lined out language actually, in essence, retroactively goes back and undoes the cut that we made during the special session. So there are times that the legislature does go back and retroactively adjust the way we've moved forward with things in order to true things up. Is correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I had to. I had to. I didn't realize I said it that much. So with that, are there any other questions from any other committees at this time? We have to put third house behind us and pay attention to the third floor. Seeing none, so with that, we have had the walkthrough. This is a BDR introduction. We'll introduce it, we'll send it to the floor. It'll be referred right back to us. We will come back up here, open up the hearing on the bill, process the bill, send it to the floor, hopefully vote on it tonight. So the 24-hour clock on this bill can start so that we can keep everything moving through the session. And make sure everybody knows what the plan is. All good? Moving forward? So with that, the chair would accept a motion to introduce BDRS 1170, makes various changes regarding to state financial administration and makes appropriations for the support of the civil government of the state. I'll take a motion from Ms. Benitez Thompson, a second from Dr. Titus. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously, the members present. Thank you again, Ms. Crockett, and your whole team for all the work that you've done. And I know even doing it by Zoom had to have its special challenges, so thank you very much. We appreciate everything you've done. So committee members, I believe we've moved K-12. It's on the floor. We're referring this to the floor. It's time to go back to the floor. Committee is in recess. All righty, committee, let's get back. Let's go ahead and come back out of recess, please. With that, as we finish up here today, I want to thank the staff for being here with us all day long and hanging tough with us. It's been a crazy day, but this is one of them that we have to get through. So the purpose of coming back upstairs was to process Assembly Bill 494, the Appropriations Act, which we just heard a little while ago. This would be a due pass. Committee members, do you have any questions on Assembly Bill 494? AB 494. Okay? Any other questions? I have a due pass from Vice Chair Monroe Moreno, a second from Dr. Titus. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. We are on our way to going home. So with that, committee, I don't think there's anything else before us today. Yeah, but I just want to make sure with Sarah we're good. I think we're good. So with that, committee members, we'll open up the line for public comment. Is there any public comment in the room this evening? Not seeing any public comment in the room. No one is on Zoom. Broadcast services, do we have anyone for public comment? On audio, please. Broadcast services, are you there?
Sorry, Chair, we are here. We are just having a technical difficulty moment.
That's okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Ms. Butler.
Doug Unger, Dougunger, UNLV chapter president and Southern Government Affairs for the Nevada Faculty Alliance. Thanks to all of you for such a long day putting all the pieces of these bills together. It makes me realize how much everything is related to everything else in the work that you do. And this is very much appreciated by the faculty in Southern Nevada. We would like to ask about the pay bill that was brought forward this morning and say we appreciate the cost of living increases. However, the 1% for financial year 23 has hit state employees with a little bit of disappointment because it doesn't nearly come close to offsetting inflation. The last COLA we had was in 2019, and our salaries just have not kept pace. We'd also like to point out that there will be a disparity between the 3% COLAs awarded to the collective bargaining units, especially to those state employees who do not have collective bargaining, including NG faculty, given that SB 373 has not yet passed, and also your hardworking LCB staff who are not represented, as well as managerial classified employees. We hope that you can find a way to fix this to get us close to parity among all state employees. We're really concerned that this is going to create issues between agencies and also affect hiring between agencies. It really might create chaos in the state employee compensation system. Based on the testimony on the Senate side this morning, that would cost roughly $15 million from the general fund. We hope you can find this fix. The other issue that my constituents are emailing me about a lot is if there might be any PEB restorations anywhere in the process possible, whether it's going to be adding to SB 451 before it's finally approved, or in some other appropriation from the American Rescue Plan funds. The total cost would be $25 to $30 million, which is really the amount that the state pulled back in its employer contribution holiday. These are the two issues that I've been getting emailed about all day long, and I would very much appreciate any concern and attention to them from you. Again, I thank you for this day. I thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. Broadcast Services, any other callers on the line?
To participate in public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, the last 3 digits, 577. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Chris Daly, DALY, Nevada State Education Association. NSEA opposes SB 458, which you passed earlier this evening, the K-12 education funding bill, for coming up short on per pupil funding, leaving Nevada students behind and killing Nevada's model programs of education equity. It's no secret K-12 public education has been woefully underfunded in Nevada, ranking 48th among states in per pupil funding. Our diverse student population, including significant numbers of English learners and at-risk students, and the largest student-to-teacher ratio in the country, compels Nevada to do better than 48. NSEA acknowledges action taken by the legislature to restore $503 million in lost funding to Nevada's K-12 budget. However, we are concerned the total per pupil funding level actually decreases by $115 from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22. Last month, the Commission on School Funding issued their preliminary recommendations to the governor and the legislature regarding optimal and adequate funding. In order to reach adequate funding levels, Nevada needs to add $2 billion per year to the K-12 education. This would require an increase of $200 million in each year, or $600 million per biennium over the next 10 years. The action taken by the Budget Committee was significant. However, even greater work will be required moving forward to meet this goal. SB 458 is the first K-12 budget under the new school funding formula. NSEA has expressed numerous concerns about the new funding plan, including shortcomings of the hold harmless provisions. While SB 458 adjusts the hold harmless for growth in student enrollment, 9 Nevada school districts will still be impacted by increases in the cost of doing business. Inflation in utilities, healthcare, and other fixed costs will have a squeezing effect on these school district budgets, effectively cutting districts' budgets in inflation-adjusted dollars. While it has been pointed out that this only impacts 7% of Nevada students, the state is responsible to provide sufficient funding to educate every Nevada student. If a classroom teacher left 7% of their students behind, they would be rated ineffective. Finally, the new funding plan transferred Zoom and Victory funding from these model equity programs to weights in the new funding formula. SB 458 sets these weights at 0.24 for English learners, 0.12 for gifted and talented, and 0.03 for at-risk pupils. The anemic weight for at-risk will provide only $209 additional per student. This is not nearly enough money to serve students with Victory services outlined in SB 543. It includes pre-kindergarten, a summer academy, additional instruction, professional development for educators, hiring incentives, employment of additional support personnel, a reading skills center, and integrated student supports with wraparound services. Zoom and Victory schools are located in Nevada's most impacted, highest poverty communities. They have the highest concentration of students in poverty and English learners. Zoom and Victory resources and services are concentrated and have a multiplier effect for students and communities who need them most, and they've been proven effective. SB 458 and the actions taken this evening in this session effectively kills these model programs. This is a significant step backward on education equity. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on the phone line?
Chair, there are no more callers for public comment. The public line is open and working.
Thank you very much. And Broadcast Services, thank you for hanging with us all day and helping us be successful with this meeting. Committee members, I believe that addresses all the issues that are before our committee this evening. We are going to adjourn, and we will not be back until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So with that, thank you all for your hard work, but we're going to be here late tomorrow night too. It's okay. With that, we are adjourned. You've done a good day's work for the state of Nevada. Thank you.